Hey guys, welcome to the second episode of the Almanac. I was thinking about doing a voiceover. I was thinking about doing a voiceover and just some gameplay, but to be honest, I feel like speaking this way, live, not really, well, I haven't prepared anything, but I have prepared something. I do have some notes I'll be reading off today. Just sort of like just to start my ideas off. But I feel like being able to speak live is, to me, more authentic rather than just having a voiceover, because having a script is a bit polished, and you can edit things away that you can't edit away when you're speaking live. But yeah, that's just why I like to do it this way, because I feel like it's more honest. Well, that's one of my friends are calling me, and I think one of the biggest, or I guess the big thing I want to be talking about today is the fact that us as people change before our situation does. I feel like at any point in life, you start by having yourself changed before the situations around you do. And in that way, it's sort of like an inside-out paradigm. Everything starts with you, and instead of everything starts outside, and then let's call it the water effect there. But everything starts with you instead of it starts with everything outside, and then it gets to you first, or after, I should say. So in that way, I used to think that if my life just got better, if the circumstances around me changed, I'd finally be happy. But it's taken a lot of reflection and just sitting with yourself, or with myself, actually, to realize that it's the other way around. Okay, hold on. Just gotta call the butterflies. Yeah, nice. And yeah, it's we actually, we're in charge of making ourselves happy before the situation does, because that leaves us, that just leaves us up to life, I guess. Like your control of the situation, the way you respond to it, is yours. And being subordinate to a situation being changed dictates how you feel. In that way, if something bad happens, then you'll feel bad, and if something good happens, you'll feel good. But if you have your own feelings, or if you have your own way to respond to it, then it doesn't matter how good or bad things get. You can have the character, the resilience, the grit to respond to things that leaving your emotional state to a situation could never do. It's like if I were to gamify this, it's like you have to level up yourself before you can unlock the next level of life, In that way, it's almost sort of like a game. You don't you don't really fight a boss, or unlock next area until you've gained the right skills. Think about this, like, if... I spoke about this in the last video, but think about, like, the map. You know, the map. Okay, so the map is like your life, you know? Where you go places and, you know. But in order to, you know, go into the next place, you actually have to know where you're going. Or, you know, have the skills to chart out your course or find a way to wherever you want to go in life. And, you know, you aren't just given the skills you need to get around. You actually need to build the skills, you know. You gotta learn how to chart your course, I guess, you know. Write down on the map out your terrain. Oh, that's beautiful. And figure out where to go from there. It's like learning to read, you know. The words are there, it's just up to you. The words are there, it's just up to you to, you know, understand it and develop the skills to understand it and interpret it in different ways. So yeah, it's all about your response rather than letting the environment dictate your response. I'm making so many friends today. But yeah, like, I guess if you do want a better life or something like that, you have to start acting like the person who lives that life now, even while you're still in the old one. You know, just you know, developing the things you need to let the situation actually happen. And I think another way to bring it all together is... Oh. I should nickname a new friend. Isle 2. Aw. Oh, they're following me. Okay. Okay. Well, I guess another way I could also put it is that, you know, the weirdest part about growing is that sometimes the surroundings or your surroundings don't really change at all, but you feel completely different. You know, when you change your mindset, you know, the problems in your life actually start looking a bit more like projects. Spray case like this one. Let's connect the realms. Ah. Okay. Anyways, where was I? So when you do change your mindset, you know, your problems start looking, you know, more like projects. It's like, you know, the situation didn't change, but, you know, your ability to handle it did. It's almost like, you know, moving to a new house, but like... Or, sorry, it's not like... It's like you haven't moved to a new house, but you finally turn the lights on and suddenly the things that used to scare you in the dark just aren't that big of a deal anymore. So, in a way, you gain new perspectives, even though you're in old situations. And when those new situations come along, you'll be ready. It won't be as hard. Whoa. And you know, that's kind of a hard reality for people to come across. I think especially with the you know, just thinking that you have to actually, you know, go through the process of growth is quite scary for a lot of people. And you know, if you're feeling restless or uncomfortable right now, you don't really need to panic. You don't need to panic, because you know it might actually be a good sign. You know, because it's a sign that you care. Oh, new emo, that's so sick. But you know, it's oh. Awesome. Okay. Because if you're feeling like restless or uncomfortable right now about your current situation, that's good. That's actually a really good sign, because you know it means you actually care. You're not really. You're not stagnant. You don't want to live in a certain situation anymore. That's actually a sign of wanting a better situation. But, you know, we have to do the work first before we get to that. And so, in that way, it's almost like a hermit crab outgrowing its shell. The feeling of not fitting in or being frustrated with where you are usually means you become too big for your current situation. Oh, is it? You know, being restless or, you know, being uncomfortable in a way. Oh. Being uncomfortable in a way is like, it's not a failure. You know, it's just, I guess it's your growth pushing against the walls of your old life. It's not that you're stuck. It's simply because you're expanding. You're expanding your horizons, expanding perspectives. Getting to see things in new ways that you never could have before. Wow. Is that a comment? Yeah, no, that's almost a way to see it, you know? The stargazing. What's this? Oh. So yeah, I guess sorry for the silence. I've just been looking at that beautiful scene, but you know, it's I guess that's what I wanted to talk about mainly today. So, you know, if you're caught in that in-between phase right now where you feel like you've changed but your life hasn't caught up yet, you know, just keep going. The scenery will shift eventually, you know. Things will change. Your changes, I guess, will bear with fruits, but it'll take a while for them to, you know, be apparent. Just, you know, maybe type something down after this video if you ever felt like you've outgrown your surroundings. Because at the end of the day, I can only say so much, and your experiences are what shape the ones I talk about. I guess, like, in a way, I guess if I can relate this to the game, you know, you develop the skills to, you know, relive the spirit's memories, learn about the spirit gates, and having to, you know, rescue them, and how that becomes a core tenet in their lives. Or, well, I didn't say their lives, but I didn't mean to say their lives, but, you know, like, as a core tenet of the gameplay, you know? And that's a skill you learn to, you know, finally be able to fly. And being able to fly comes from the spirit. And that changes the situation. Because all of a sudden, you know, all of a sudden, it's not only that you can't walk anymore, you can actually fly. And so by learning the skills to rescue spirits, and to actually learn how this game works, you can actually start flying. You've changed, and now the situation can finally change. So when you finally learn the right skills, when you've changed your mindset, when you really involve yourself in your path of discovery, even if it's hard, and even if you find it uncomfortable or restless, you can finally have the situation change. I went from walking on some sand dunes to being able to fly and to enter this temple. Well, I'll be able to rescue all the other spirits. I think that's the lesson. To learn the skills before the situations change. To change ourselves before the situation does. Because I think, you know, how do I put this? I guess, you know, people... I guess it works both ways, you know. People can change situations, but I think what happens more is that situations change people, and that's something, I guess that's just the truth that we all have to live by. Thanks for watching, guys.